God places in the heart of every human being a desire, a passion to be with other people. We all have this drive inside of us where we want to connect, we want to relate, we eventually want to open up and be able to share our feelings as best as possible with other people. You know, there are all kinds of people out there, both good and bad for sure. Parents know that regarding their kids. They want so much for their kids not to associate with the bad. That was such an extreme in my own life that in the 3rd grade, when I started associating with the wrong crowd, it was so bad it was so bad that the principal called my parents into the office. And then eventually my dad said, in order to resolve this, we need to get Randy away from this other guy, that they moved my brother and my sister and me into a totally different school just to get me separated from this other person. But it's amazing the drive that people have in their hearts to be a friend. Some people are so desperate they'll do anything to have a friend, give in to any of their desires, and eventually they bear the consequences. For sure, your friends determine your future. And that's not just for kids, it's even for grown-ups, for senior adults. This is something we all need to know in a deep level. So as we continue our series through Proverbs and relationships, I'd like for you to open your Bibles to Proverbs 13. And I would like to begin with a big perspective at the beginning with 4 different levels of friendship. And to get a grasp of this will help make the rest of the message much clearer. And if you look at different presentations from different people, you will see probably as few as 3 different levels of relationships. I saw one with as many as 8. The important part is not how many levels you make, but just realizing that there are differences and you relate differently in each level. The first one we're going to call acquaintance. You meet someone for the first time. You exchange names. You may ask, well, where do you live? Or where do you go to school? What type of work do you do? You might even go to really deep conversations like the weather, or maybe talk about the Cleveland Browns and how they're going to be sold in 2028 to move to another location. And maybe you can talk about sports, just general categories, but that's just the acquaintance level. It's not very deep, it's very shallow. You can talk all day long on that level and at the end of the day feel empty because God wants us to go deeper. The number 2 level is one I am calling friendship. And I know for people who know how to organize things would say, you can't use the same word that was in your title for 4 levels of friendship. I know, but it just fit well, so I'll put it in there. Number 2 is friendship, where you get to know them a little bit better. You maybe know the names of their relatives, where they work, what type of car they drive. You're getting to know the people better, and just a few of the emotions start to come up. That is, depending on whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian. This is the highest level that a non-Christian can experience. That's as far as they can go, the friendship. And I mean, they can open up as much as they want to, tell their personal habits, their weaknesses, but it's really only a friendship level. It's not until we go to the 3rd level that a whole new world blossoms out. Number 3 is fellowship. Fellowship. When we look at Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20, we see these words, that he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. The idea of walking with wise men takes this idea of fellowship. You're not just walking beside him to go from point A to point B, but it's like your life journeys together. You're learning from him. There's a closeness within there. And even the word companion suggests something strong, but it's not the word fellowship. How can a wise man have fellowship with an unwise person? How can a Cleveland Browns fan have close fellowship with a Pittsburgh Steelers fan? There's a difference there. There's a disconnect. How can a Christian have fellowship with a non-Christian? And when they do have a closeness and a bonding together, they call that fellowship, but it's not. Because non-Christians have no idea what it's like to have a relationship with the Lord. And the bond that's called fellowship is that this connection where two different people have a close walk with God, and when they see each other, that whole area just opens up inside their heart. There's a common connection. You could be 1,000 miles away from here, and you meet another Christian who totally loves the Lord. And when you love the Lord, there's a sense of, wow, like you've known them all your life. You haven't even exchanged names yet. But there's this fellowship because of your oneness with God. So I'm calling the third level the level where only Christians can experience. It's fellowship because of our connection with God. Some of you have seen the illustration in marriage counseling classes where one person is here, another person is here, and the only way to get them closer together is to have both of them move closer to God. And as they get closer to God, they end up drawing closer to each other. That's the idea of fellowship. There's this connection that only God can bring. Let's go to the fourth level, which is the intimate friendship. The intimate level where you're able to share anything you want to. Now, I know that relationships are bigger in desire for a woman, even in her conversations, but a man wants the same thing. He wants to be able to open up without being told how stupid he is or how wrong he is. Sometimes he just wants to express a feeling. Boy, I don't like this. And not to be told afterwards how dumb he is. But other people will know, someone close enough to say, I care about you. What's going on in your life? You can just open up and share. We all want someone. But I want you to look at this in a much deeper level. I confess there's some stuff here that I didn't even see until just this week. So would you join me in looking with chapter 3, verse 32? Because the first sub-point for the intimate friendship is that it's primarily with God and with wisdom. When we look at chapter 3, verse 32, the second half says, but God is intimate with the upright. And I thought that was a zinger for me for a while, because here I'm trying to put together messages on relationships between ourselves and others. And when I saw this, I realized that really is the start for an intimate relationship or even fellowship with other people, is first with God. Some of you have a translation where they capitalize the H for he, so the translators are letting you know that's referring to God. For the rest of you, maybe it's a lowercase. It really is talking about God wanting that intimate relationship, but it's available only for the upright. But let's look at what wisdom has to say. Remember our message from a week or two ago where wisdom is portrayed as a woman? So now we go to chapter 7, verse 4. And God says, say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend. When God is your intimate friend and wisdom is your intimate friend, When something else comes along that's evil or vile, you immediately recognize it and you want to start repelling and getting away from it. But without this closeness with God, you make yourself susceptible to any friend who comes along. I've mentioned before how in the last few weeks, from different directions, I'm hearing these bombarding comments from people. Would someone please love me? And one reason they have difficulty is because they're going to the wrong location. Only God can fulfill our deepest longing. And until that is satisfied, there never will be intimacy. People want to open up and share, but it'll never take place on a comfortable, enjoyable way unless someone has a strong relationship with God Almighty. That has to be the beginning. So when we talk about intimacy, it must start primarily with God. Ideally, it should exist with the spouse. Would you look at chapter 18, verse 22? And I realize the passage does not talk necessarily about this person being an intimate friend, but we know it should. Your spouse. In chapter 18, verse 22, it says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord." Husbands and wives should be opening up on 99.999% of all matters. There should be an openness to share with the other person no matter what's going on, good or bad. I'm not saying live a lifestyle of grumbling and complaining, but there should be an openness of sharing with the other person and being able to share. That should be with the spouse. But now I want to move on to this next area, which we all long, but yet so few people have. We've talked about intimacy primarily with God and with wisdom. We've said ideally with a spouse, but I want to add another one that it's additionally with a few. Look at chapter 18, verse 24. Things will get a little bit interesting if some of you have some of the older translations. But it does appear from the best manuscripts that the best interpretation, which most of the contemporary translations do have, it says, "A man of too many friends comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Here's the point. I'll quote Chuck Swindoll, who said, "You should have no more than 5 intimate friends at a time. Your spouse should be 1, but they're at most no more than 4, but preferably at least 1. That there should be someone other than a spouse that you can just open up to and know the other person's not going to yell at you or put you down or call you stupid. They don't necessarily have to agree, but you both are just totally open and free. You share your weaknesses. You ask for prayer requests. You mention, "Oh man, I was tempted with this yesterday." The other person shares with your concern and opens up. That's an intimate level that everybody desires, whether they even know it or not. We want a close friend with whom they can open up completely and share anything. Preferably, and that it not be repeated either. So this is the intimacy level that we all desire. We may not ever say it. It's even in the heart of a man as well. Maybe he says nothing his whole life. He just keeps quiet. But deep down inside, he knows, I wish I could talk to someone and just feel free and be open in my heart and have this great oneness and connection with someone else. Well, with that in mind, we need to look at this idea of who should be a close person. So the next part of our message is look at a bunch of verses which tell us the people to avoid for a close friendship. The phrase should have been just friendship. We're talking level 3. People to avoid for level 3 relationship. The first one is in chapter 1, verse 10. These people are called sinners. The passage says, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent." Now you'll have to read that on your own, but it's like 8 to 10 verses following. Don't give in to sinners. The definition of sinners here is not non-Christians or Gentiles. It's a person whose heart is not open to the Lord. If they're giving in to some favorite sin or habit, then that person is included in this. Because if you get close to a sinner with a noticeable severe habit, you'll become just like the person. Let's move on to the next one, chapter 13, verse 20. While the first verse talks about avoiding sinners, this one says to avoid fools. Actually, we read this verse a moment ago. "He who walks with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm." They have no conviction, no standards. They just do whatever they want to. Fools just do whatever they want to do. And if you hang around them on a level 3 friendship, you're headed for trouble. Every Christian should have dozens of people non-Christians on a level 2 basis. Your co-workers, your neighbors, possibly your relatives. I know if they're a relative, you almost have a lot of closeness with them and no private information. We Christians should have a bunch of non-Christian friends, but that relationship does not go beyond level 2. But sadly, today in churches, it's like almost a disease where all young people and even many adults insist that their best friends are not Christian. And they say, well, everything's going to be fine, and years later it falls apart. It's too late. And God is warning us. We've looked at sinners. We've looked at fools. He who walks with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools will be destroyed. Look at chapter 16, verse 27. These people are called gossips. In chapter 16, verse 27, we see a worthless man digs up evil, while his words are like scorching fire. A perverse man spreads strife, and a slanderer separates even intimate friends. While you have an intimate friend over here, and you start talking to a slanderer or gossiper, and within time, they will try to separate you from your intimate friend, saying things that they shouldn't, and you believe it, and now you're fighting with your intimate friend. Gossips, people who just love to get information and spread it. Look at chapter 17, verse 9. He who conceals a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. We know this. If you have hurts in your life and you go to someone else hoping to get some counsel or at least encouragement, even if they say nothing, but for them to take what you just said and go share it with other people, it's so gross, so horrible. And the passage is saying, stay away from the gossips. Even though they may be Christians, there's a point where we just have to just avoid them because they will drag us down. Look at chapter 20, verse 19. He who goes about as a slanderer reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a gossip. It is interesting, if you listen to a gossip, they're telling you something that's private about someone else. And if we have just a lick of sense, we should realize when that person leaves me, that person is going to start all over, telling the next person about me. I mean, to hang around a gossip, you're just asking for your own private information to be spread. Let's move to chapter 19, verse 4, for another group of people we should be avoiding. And when I say avoid, I mean on a level 3 basis. We should be going out into the world and talking to these non-Christians. We are to get to know them, but not on a level 3 basis, which means you go out and you have time together, you eat multiple meals together. Now, if you eat a meal with a non-Christian with the purpose of witnessing, that's one thing. But if you're bringing him along to go to a football game just to keep doing it every week, and you're starting to get close, you're trying to pull them into a level 3 basis, which is not going to work. Within time, they're pulling you down to a level 2. They're pulling you down. So the next group that we wanted to emphasize is people seeking a handout. Chapter 19, verse 4. Wealth adds many friends, but a poor man is separated from his friend. Verse 6. Many will seek the favor of a generous man, and every man is a friend to him who gives gifts. Verse 7. All the brothers of a poor man hate him. How much more do his friends abandon him? He pursues them with words, but they are gone. People who are in the world of alcoholism know this. They almost all say the same thing. You find out who your friends are when you run out of money. Because when you're no longer able to buy their beer for them, they leave you. That was their only reason to be with you, to get a free handout. Some people go to churches. Would you please help me? Why are they there? For their own reason, selfishness, and when they leave, they go ask from someone else. We do not go on a level 3 fellowship level with these people. Let's look at another one. Angry people in chapter 22, verse 24. Chapter 22, verse 24 says, do not associate with a man given to anger, or go with a hot-tempered man. Why? Or you will learn his ways and find a snare for yourself. When we hear someone become angry, an unwise mind goes, whoa, this guy's really confident in what he's saying. He must really know what he's talking about. Listen to that anger. Boy, you listen to how bad these other people are, and you just give in. And then you marry the person. And then you find out it has nothing to do with confidence, just a person is just an angry, violent person. God says, do not associate with a man given to anger. Now this statement is true, man not to associate with a woman given to anger. The principle is there. But angry people do not have peace in their hearts. Why do we want to associate ourselves with someone who brings us down with constant anger? It's in the Bible. Look 2 verses later, chapter 22, verse 26. These people are cosigners. Do not be among those who give pledges, among those who become guarantors for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should he take your bed from under you? Associating with people who, I'll help you, they're going to go down. Do you know if you help someone else and you become entangled with them financially, like in co-signing, if God judges them or disciplines for something, he may choose to do it through their finances. And if you're entangled with their financial dealings and their indebtedness, you become a recipient of God's discipline aimed at someone else. God doesn't want us to entangle ourselves with the finances of other people, or we become trapped in their disciplines. Let's move on to another one that's in chapter 24, verse 21. People who lack convictions, or maybe another interpretation is rebels. Chapter 24, verse 21 says, my son, fear the Lord and the king. Do not associate with those who are given to change. I've had a struggle with that wording, given to change. You can interpret that in the English language a bunch of different ways. But apparently it's just someone who doesn't have conviction. That they say one thing one day and they go to something else another day. And they don't know what they're talking about, especially those who give you advice for your life. Well, what you need to do is such and such. And you tell them, well, I've already done that. Well, what you need to do is such and such. Well, I've already... And what you really need to do, wait a minute, you've already told me 3 totally different things that have nothing to do with each other, yet you're coming across like you know the answer. They're wishy-washy. They don't know what's the truth. And the rebels, that's just bottom line. I don't want to do what's right. Because if you go to a level 3 relationship with these people, you'll become just like they are. Chapter 28, verse 7, we see the next group, gluttons. He who keeps the law is a discerning son, but he who is a companion of gluttons humiliates his father. A glutton is someone who does not have self-control. And you hang around someone who gorges in pleasures, you will start gorging in pleasures as well, whatever that pleasure might be. It might not be food, it might be something else. Let's go to another one, chapter 29, verse 3. Immoral people. Again, these are talking about our trying to push people up to a level 3 relationship. We shouldn't do it. Chapter 29, verse 3 says, a man who loves wisdom makes his father glad, but he who keeps company with harlots wastes his wealth. I can't tell you how many times men have said to me, boy, that statement sure is true. Boy, that statement sure is true. Wrong company brings you down. Let's go to another one, chapter 29, verse 24. The last group we will look at of people to avoid, to try to have fellowship with them, which is impossible. 29 verse 24 says, he who is a partner with a thief hates his own life. He hears the oath but tells nothing. If you think that you can hang around a thief and have everything go right, you're being deceived. Guess what's going to happen to your possessions soon? He's going to take it. I mean, you will get the consequences if you hang around a thief and try to be a close friend with a thief. Well, let's not talk about the negative people, because if we make God and wisdom our intimate friend and we focus on that, who are these good people for us to be around? Let's now look at the people to seek for fellowship. So the one group is, once again, back in chapter 13, verse 20. These are wise people. He who walks with wise men shall be wise. The more you hang around them, the more you become like they are. That should tell us ahead of time. How do we do that? Well, I'm going to mention a few more points, and then we'll kind of summarize it with better explanation in a minute. Another group we should hang around with are people who care. So look at chapter 27, verse 10. Chapter 27, verse 10 says, do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother far away. I don't fully understand the passage, but the idea is there are some people out there who care about you, and sadly, they probably care about you more than your own family members do. And it's saying, make sure you don't leave those who really care about you. But then let's look at one final aspect. Chapter 27, verse 17 says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. The idea is summarized with this. If you could put everybody on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being they don't want anything to do with God at all. At all, at all. They don't even say his name other than to curse him. But a 10 is a person who's totally sold out to God. They'll do anything for God. They'll even live as a hermit. They'll be a foreign missionary. They'll do whatever God says to do. They're totally sold out to be like Jesus Christ. Where would you fit on a scale of 0 to 10? All right, hide that number for a moment. Next question, where do you want to be? Do you want to be a 2? Do you want to be a 6? How about a 9? Would you really like to be a 10? Really, really, truly, do you want to be a 10? If you understand the message and everything that's been said, if you really want to be a 10, you will do as much as you can to avoid the 9s. I'm not saying leave your family, leave your neighbors, leave your job, but I am saying if you really, really, really want to be a 10, you're going to have to hang around them. And how do we do that? You may have to go outside of the Cornersburg, Austintown, Youngstown area. You may have to read biographies of godly people. You may need to get on the mailing list of some of your heroes like Johnny Erickson Tata or some other godly preachers and listen to what they have to say. If you know some godly missionaries, get on their mailing list and let their words and their hearts, because the passage says, he who walks with wise men. You can't necessarily walk side by side with Johnny Erickson if she lives 2,000 miles away, but you can learn her heart and get her passion. And it's not just Johnny. There's so many other godly people out there for you to connect. And for people who are nearby, find out who they are and be desperate. Can I please spend 30 minutes with you every week, please? I got my pad right here. I'm ready. Whenever you're available, can I spend 30 minutes at your house just listening to you? The point is, how desperately do you want to be a 10? You won't be a 10 if you're going to read Facebook posts. Definitely, you'll probably go down if you read Facebook posts, or if you read so much other social media out there. If you're just buying your normal books, watching normal TV shows, you're not going to be a 10 or a 9 or an 8 or maybe a 7. How desperately do you want to be at the very top? It's your choice. The title of the message has been, Your Friends Determine Your Future. But I'd like to go one step further. And there's one more line on your notes, and it says, the person you need to be. And the idea is you need to be, and the blank that I have on there is a wise mentor. But the idea is you need to be a 10 to help all these other people become a 10. And to understand that now, I mean, that really ups the standards for you, because now other people are watching you, everything you do. They're watching what you say, what you do, and you need to make sure you are living a life of a 10 at all times so that those around you can be a 10. As more people become a part of our church, they're looking at everyone in this room, and all of us have the potential to be a strong magnet to pull them further up to greater godliness. What's your commitment today? Where do you want to be between a 0 and a 10? And how desperately do you really want that for your life? Would you bow your heads for prayer?